So we decentralize the US debt in a way that the US is much less subject to geopolitical attacks by one single decision maker that might decide that the US is not its best ally anymore.
And who came up with that? Whose idea was it?
Us. Think about it. A couple Italians came up with the best idea to help the US dollar out there.
We're here with Paolo Ardoino from Tether. You're very notorious for orange pilling, the cancer guys. And I don't really know your orange pill story. Like, I researched it online. I know that you started in Bitfinex, but I would like to hear from you, like, how you were orange pilled.
I've been a developer all my life. I love Sci-Fi. I started coding when I was 8, and a couple of different interesting opportunities as a researcher at university working on highly resilient networks for battlefields. I learned about the importance of creating technology that resists to the wrath of God, technology that serves the humans in the worst case scenario rather than just work in the best case scenario. I think money that we have and technology that we have in our lives only work if the world is at peace, only works if things go well. When things will start going south, money will be broken, and we have seen in the past, and technology will be broken because technology relies on centralization. And so I've been always passionate about decentralized technology, peer-to-peer technology, even before Bitcoin, much before Bitcoin. I've been working on BitTorrent technology, on other peer-to-peer technologies for data sharing distribution almost all my life. I worked on privacy technology and this thing. So I have read the white paper Bitcoin end of 2012 and start to really get into it in 2013. The way I see Bitcoin is the only currency in the world that is governed by math. Everything that we have, all the other currencies in the world are controlled by humans. Humans change. Humans become greedy or just fail. Math is the only thing that is certain in the universe. So to me, being a mathematician applied to computer science, I always loved that. And so I fell in love with Bitcoin in 2013. 2014, I shut down my startup and started working for Bitfinex. I became the CTO of Bitfinex in 2016, became the CTO of Tether in 2017, and then the CEO of Tether in 2023.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. You have quite a journey. And speaking of journeys, so you've gone from from having the New York attorney trying to sue you to having literally DC inviting you to come and speak. How has that journey been for you?
I think it's been very, in a certain way, an emotional roller coaster, right? So because I think, the past administration in the United States was definitely not the nicest towards crypto in general, not just us. I think that Tether has been subject to huge misinformation campaigns, also driven by our competitors, for the last 4 years. They bet everything on the fact that I would never set foot in the United States. How fun is that? Now I'm here. So their strategies have been crumbling for the last 3 months. I've been in DC a lot, explaining who we are. We are very simple people. I think Tether is the company that by itself solved or helped financial inclusion in the best way in human history. So we have 420 million users in emerging markets, developing countries that are using USDT, and we are teaching them Bitcoin. We are growing, our user base growing by 30 million new wallets per quarter. Is almost like Facebook levels of growth. I believe that money, and Bitcoin especially, is the best social network. Money is a social network and Bitcoin is the best social network. And USDT is like the first step for these entire populations living, not in the United States, but living in countries where their economies are so much worse than the one of the United States, that the best economy in the world. So when we get them onto USDT, then the next step is getting them onto Bitcoin. On top of that, so we bring financial inclusion to the people that are unbanked, that are left behind by the financial system. The people that they are left behind by the financial system simply because they are too poor of being of interest of the banks, because they don't generate $150 commission per year that the banks need in order to keep their account open. The banks describe them as a niche, but it's 3 billion people, is half of the population, and the banks have the arrogance to describe them as a niche. It's very bad. And so we serve them. That is our user base. We are very proud of that. We go to the people that the rich elite don't want to touch. And then we are using the money to buy back the US Treasuries, the US debt. In 2024, we were the 5th largest purchaser of US Treasuries. Today, we hold more than $125 billion in US Treasuries. We are not a country, Tether is not a country, but if we were a country, we would be the 18th largest owner of US Treasuries. And with the profits, we are investing our profits. We generate around 20 billion in profits in the last 2 years. We are investing a lot in Bitcoin technology, in Bitcoin education, in Bitcoin mining, and we buy Bitcoin and we create things like 21. So there are very few companies in the world that actually reinvest so much. We are talking about billions and billions ourselves in Bitcoin education, Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin technology, and Bitcoin. So I'm very proud of what our company did, and I'm here to explain to the lawmakers that we were very naive at Tether. We were keeping our head down, we were working hard. We didn't do much in the past about our public perception. But now we understand how that is important. We should not let our competitors define us. So we started coming here and explaining that actually we are the best allies for the United States. We are helping the US dollar hegemony, but also we are helping Bitcoin. And since the United States will become the Bitcoin capital of the world, I think we should, even more so, we are the best allies.
When you mentioned competitors, who are they and why were they trying to keep you out from the US?
I will not name them by name, but I think it's very clear who these competitors are. And since I'm being here, I met so many companies, hundreds of companies, and they all tell me that they are being bullied by the same guys.
Really?
But the difference is that we have very strong and big shoulders. And now we are here, and we are going to help all these companies to create a very fair and good ecosystem for Bitcoin in the United States. So our motto is unstoppable together. We don't think that a Tether unstoppable together. We don't think we can build an industry ourselves, right? It's about like peer-to-peer money, is peer-to-peer intelligence. Like we invest in artificial intelligence. We build our artificial intelligence platform to be peer-to-peer. We don't want control over things. The beauty of Bitcoin is having no one have control. Yes, USDT, we have some control, but anyway, removing so many intermediaries from the monetary equation, that is much better, 100,000 times better than what was before. And on top of that, we think that the next leg is making all the hundreds of millions of users that use USDT use Bitcoin. So that is our focus. We don't care to go public. We don't have to defend the stock price as our competitors. We want to work for the benefit of the people.
I like it. If you're stuck spending dollars, at least stop earning fiat rewards. Use Fold and earn Bitcoin on everyday spending, groceries, travel, even paying bills. And take advantage of Bitcoin rewards with merchants you might already shop with. It's the easiest way to stack sats. So, if you're in the United States and you don't have Fold yet, what are you doing? Buy, earn, and save in Bitcoin, all in one app. Fold is the ultimate toolkit for making Bitcoin savings a daily habit. And also, I want to touch on the huge announcement news that you were talking about 21. So you're pulling out SoftBank, you have Malers, you have Cancer. How did that start?
It's almost funny because it's like almost the start of a joke. There's an Italian, a French, and a Japanese. No, it's like So you have
But it
counter.
is.
Yes, it's kind
No, I'm
of
kidding.
is. So it's funny because, well, Jack Mathers, my opinion, is the best CEO that you can have for a Bitcoin company. He understands Bitcoin as very few can, but also more importantly, can speak about Bitcoin in a way that is simple and then everyone can understand. Second, you have Cantor. Cantor is the financial institution that understood Bitcoin before anyone else at that level. Third, you have, well, we are Tether. Fourth, you have SoftBank, that is the stamp. Bringing SoftBank to the table is unprecedented. And we're very glad and grateful that they decided to partner with us to create the best Bitcoin treasury company.
And why did you decide to move some of Tether's treasury into this new venture?
When you create something, you have to demonstrate that you really believe in. And we believe that 21 is the company that will try to deliver as much as possible maximization of Bitcoin per share. Is led by a great guy, has a great team. We need to lead by example. That's why we did that.
And you've also have relocated to El Salvador. How has that been like for you?
It's a beautiful country. First of all, El Salvador has a very thorough legislation on stablecoins, which we didn't find in Europe. The European Union had a very bad legislation on stablecoins. It's called MICA. And the reason why it's bad is because it forces stablecoins issuers to keep 60% of reserves in uninsured cash deposits in a bank. We all know what happens with banks. They do a fractional reserve. Look at our major competitor. In 2023, they had $3 billion in uninsured cash deposits in Silicon Valley Bank. The bank blew up. They almost died. FDIC saved them, saved the bank, and so they were saved. I want to be able to keep treasuries so that US treasuries. So if the banks has issues, they're mine. They go back. They are securities. They come back to me, and I move them somewhere else. So El Salvador is the Bitcoin country. Is a country that really took good care of writing proper, thorough digital asset regulations before anyone else, and also has a great relationship now with the United States. So that's why we feel at home, and especially stablecoins are very important for Central and South America, for poorer countries. They are nice to have in the United States, but the reality is that stablecoins are more powerful in emerging markets. So it's more important for us to work with the boots on the ground in these countries, like instead of dictating and trying to, rule the world from an ivory tower in Wall Street. We are much more comfortable among the people in the streets, doing education, and that's how I like to lead.
You guys are building kiosks in Africa too, no?
Yes, they are my preferred story. So Africa has a huge issue also, many issues, but one of the major ones that is making Africa lagging behind is the fact that they have very not good access to electricity. Africa has 1.4 billion people and 600 million people don't have access to electricity. So what we did is to create peer-to-peer electricity, because some people think, oh well, but you can create like a huge power generation facility in Africa. You do nuclear power in Africa and you solve the problem of Africa. The people that speak in this way cannot point Africa on the map. In order to solve the problem of electricity in Africa, what we did is we invested in this company that is creating kiosks with solar panel on top and rechargeable batteries inside. These batteries are enough to power up a few smartphones and some small devices like radios and light bulbs in the house. We sell subscriptions for $3 per month. That is reasonable for them, and you can recharge the battery 4 times, or swap the battery 4 times. So now we have already 500 kiosks, around 500,000 users, and we did already 10 million battery swaps. And this is a pilot. By the end of 2026, the plan is to have 10,000 kiosks in Africa, and by 2030, we're going to have 100,000 kiosks. So we are going to power up 30 million households. We plan to use these kiosks to do Bitcoin education and stablecoin education. And also, this is one of the few changes you can see from space. Because if we can power up Africa, especially in the central part, that is very dark now, you will see it from space.
It's going to be very cool. And it's good that you're mentioning stablecoin education and Bitcoin education, because in the Bitcoin space, I feel like many think that stablecoins should be centralized, but in a way they're completely different from Bitcoin. And you've said Tether helps decentralize the US debt in one interview. Can you explain what that means and why it matters geopolitically?
In the last year, the US suffered from China selling treasuries for multiple reasons. And also Japan started to sell treasuries. The problem there is that you have one decision maker called Xi Jinping. You press a button and sell the treasuries, the US treasuries. With USDT, you have 420 million users, and each one of them holds a portion of exposure of US treasuries. So they will not wake up one single morning and say, oh, let's sell the treasuries. No, they are all different brains, all different people. So we decentralize the US debt in a way that the US is much less subject to geopolitical attacks by one single decision maker that might decide that the US is not its best ally anymore.
And who came up with that? Whose idea was it?
Us. Think about it. A couple Italians came up with the best idea to help the US dollar out there.
But why the US dollar? I mean, you have the euro. Wouldn't it be easier?
No, because no one. So if you go outside the United States, you stop 1,000 people in the streets. You ask them, would you prefer your national currency or the US dollar? 1,000 of them, not even one, will say my national currency. And 1,000 of them will say the US dollar. Although the euro generally would be better than national currencies, the euro does not have a brand. Not even Europeans want the euro, by the way. So imagine people outside of Europe.
One of the crazy parts is that obviously currencies have like a deadline in a way. You know, you had in Spain, you had the pesetas and all the different currencies. Do you think that's eventually going to happen to the US, that it's coming to an end in a way? Like, do you guys take that into account?
So I'm very familiar with the European history. There is, in 1929, there was the Weimar Republic in Germany, where with a barrel of German marks, you could buy a loaf of bread, because the money, the currency devaluated so fast and so much that it was worthless. It was like you could set it on fire and not lose wealth. I think if the US dollar will lose or will become so worthless, the entire world will be in a very dire situation. But history teaches us that these events will happen. One thing is not hoping for it, but we have to be realistic. I think the US should look at Bitcoin as its own edge. The Bitcoin Strategic Reserve is very important for that, because history is unpredictable but usually repeats itself. And there are many wars, there will be many wars in the future. We cannot change that. We are humans. Humans tend to do wars. And so I define Tether as the stable company. Our mission is bring stability to society. And I believe that stability to society can only be brought in two ways. With stable money, that in this moment is the US dollar because it's the most stable currency in the world. But in the long term is actually Bitcoin. And stable technology. So fair access to open technology is as important as access to money in order to have a stable society. Until we have Bitcoin as the main form of currency in the world and open technology accessible to everyone, we are not going to have a stable society. And so wars will keep happening and all that. So I think eventually in the long run will be inevitable, but I think by then I hope that the United States will have a huge Bitcoin balance sheet.
Now, one of the things is you're a huge Bitcoiner, and you're talking about Bitcoin being as a medium of exchange. When would we expect that? And when do you project it would happen? And when it does happen, would Tether switch from a USDT to a USD?
So Lightning is a very good technology, but Lightning is also in a certain way limited at this moment as a scale.
Why do you mean limited?
Lightning is a peer-to-peer communication layer for Bitcoin. Is Bitcoin channels, and on paper they're great. It's great. But also, given the fact that there's routing and there are certain technical requirements, Lightning has a gravitational force towards centralized pools of liquidity. So although technically everyone can open a channel with each other, there is an incentive for people to connect all to central hubs. So there is a gravitational force towards centralization. Bitfinex today runs two nodes that represents 1/3 of the entire liquidity of Lightning. And another third is async. So I think as Bitcoiners, I want to be upfront with this issue. So I want to think about it because I think that we need to do still a lot of work to make sure that we don't create the best technology out there and then ends up to be centralized, right? So because as a force of nature, that's why Tether is already and will keep investing in research to keep improving what we have today. Because the journey is still long, we are very early, and we need to have technology that is resistant to the wrath of God. Bitcoin as the main layer is already that. But if we want, it's not perfect as a payment layer because will become too expensive if we all use it for payments. So Lightning is not perfect yet. So we need to keep going with the iterations and be ready before shit hits the fan.
You think shit will hit the fan, or we still have a sliver of hope?
We have time, but eventually we cannot expect everything will be fine forever. So I want to make sure that when things will go worse and will go south, there is a proper infrastructure, Bitcoin infrastructure, that is resilient and can scale infinitely without having any layers of centralization.
And what does that look like?
I mean, I think that there are different approaches, like ARC is interesting, and Lightning itself, there is so much new research that's coming up. There is also Lightspark, everyone is contributing to that mission. I think that a variation or like a compound effect of all these technologies will, or even a mesh network across this technology could be a solution. But I'm a big fan of using peer-to-peer channels because I don't like layer twos of all the different other altcoins. They're bad. They will never scale. Peer-to-peer channels like Lightning are the right solution, but we need to make sure that there are no incentives to move towards centralization and gravitational force that will not create a centralization. So I think that we have few ideas as Tether that we want to sponsor research on for everyone's benefit that we are going to release in the next few months.
And going back to the question that I interrupted you about Lightning, would Tether ever become USB, like backed by sats or Bitcoin, if the dollar hits the fan and everything goes to shit?
So we have 152 billion of issued tokens. If the dollar disintegrates, as long as we have 152 billion of reserves to match the outstanding liabilities, that's fine. It's not our job to make the dollar stronger. Or in a way, we are making the dollar stronger, but the dollar is the dollar, right? So if the dollar become weak, people will move to Bitcoin. At that point, you don't need USDT. So, and that is one of the best realizations of Tether. We are not creating technology and forcing it down the throat of everyone forever. People will use USDT because they think and are using USDT because they trust the United States dollar. And that will continue until the US will be the leading country in the world. And the US understands that really well, right? They understand how important is the US dollar generally. When that stops to be true, there is no need. People will not use the US dollar. Hence, people will not use USDT. People will just use Bitcoin.
But one of the things you talk about, I don't want to get too political here, but you've been a lot in DC and you've met all, the Trump administration, and we can't deny it. Politicians, they're not going to want the US dollar to, go away anytime soon, and they like having control. I feel like once you have control, you can't get rid of, you still want more control. Do you think in a way they're trying to centralize Bitcoin, or what are the talks that's happening, and how are you maybe influencing them as a Bitcoiner?
There are certain risks, right? So if you take it to the extreme, if 99.9999% of all the Bitcoins would be in ETFs, that's going to be a problem. But it's not the politicians that are doing that, are humans that are doing that. Because most of the people are buying ETFs because they are afraid of holding Bitcoin themselves. So in a way, it's a failure of our industries, ourselves as Bitcoiners. We have to admit it. We didn't create enough good wallets or good rails or good education for people to be comfortable enough to hold Bitcoin by themselves. And so they prefer to hold it through ETFs. So it's not the politicians that are forcing that. It's our failures in user experience that are pushing for it. I believe that is totally reversible.
But no, I do have to advocate for the people, because I teach on an island and it's really hard for them to understand the concept of holding your own Bitcoin. So they do find it easier to use Lightning and different options, because come on, having your 12 words in a system that has taught you to not be,
Many solutions to that. Humanity is trying to go to Mars, right? And yet we force people to explore 12 words. But there are plenty of ways where you can cryptographically in a deterministic way save a copy of these words in a decentralized way, so that if you lose your phone, you can still get back them. So there are plenty of ways. Again, what I'm saying is that Bitcoiners, and I'm one of them, we are sometimes too obnoxious. And we pretend that everyone, even the smallest village in Africa, they should understand Bitcoin. They have bigger problems than trying to understand Bitcoin. So it's up to us to make them comfortable and take the time, the patience, and create tools for them to use.
Why are you interested in investing in Rumble?
Rumble is a company. First of all, they have a Bitcoin budget. Second, they have been bullied by the advertisement agencies because of free speech. They didn't ban anyone. Hence, the advertisement agencies controlled by a certain political party try to kill them, burning the entire ground around themselves. So removing them advertisement money would like be removing oxygen from them and choking them to death. So the signal that we wanted to give supporting Rumble was people have the right to free speech. And we should support free speech even if we don't like what we hear. Because otherwise we are not going to be free. Otherwise, the time we want to say something from our side that someone else that doesn't like it, then we will be banned as well, right? We have been living for so much too long in the cancel culture, and we wanted to show that Tether has a big balance sheet and will support freedom money, that is Bitcoin, freedom technology, that is Hole Punch Kit and all the technology and the AI platform QVAC that we are building, and will support freedom communications and freedom media, that is Rumble.
One of the common themes that I see here is that you guys support the underdogs. How did that come to be?
Although you say that we are probably one of the most profitable companies in the world, I still consider ourselves the underdogs. We are the underdogs. I'm happy to be considered the villains from JP Morgan and all these guys in Wall Street. Because if I'm their villain, then I'm the hero of all the hundreds of millions of people that are living in emerging markets. When I saw our competitors bullying us and trying to bet on the fact that we would never come here, we were the underdogs. That's why we are still the underdogs. So when we see people in our same situation, we are attracted to help them and support them.
Oh, I love that. The heroes to the people. Is there such a thing as too many Bitcoin treasury companies?
No.
No?
You don't want one single company to hold all the Bitcoins. You want to have competition. You want to have diversification. In diversification, there is anti-fragility. So more the merrier.
I wanted to know, what's your Bitcoin hottest take?
Probably what I said about Lightning being imperfect and have a gravitational force towards centralization.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paolo.
It was great.